Hi, everyone. We are so glad you're with us today. We have a very special guest, Matt Miller, who's your educator. He's written 5 books, total innovator, passionate about empowering each and every one of us with practical, engaging ideas that we can start using tomorrow. So connecting with Matt is a perfect example of what we really stand for with YaySTEM, and that is find the experts in the field and bring them in. Learn from them, have your kids learn from them. So in Matt's book, Ditch That Textbook, he did say that being a connected educator is the single most important step he has taken to become a more innovative educator. And we truly couldn't agree more. So Matt, thank you so much for being with us today and talking with us all about dumping the books and ditching that textbook. We can't wait to get started.
I can't either. And I'm so excited you all invited me. I always love getting to do things with my fellow Hoosiers. Like that's the best. So I just appreciate getting invited.
Yes.
So Matt, we were reading your book and watching on YouTube some of your stuff, and the quote it jumps to all three of us. For us, it would be tragic if our kids didn't miss us when we were gone, and so we just kind of wanted to open with this. If your students didn't have to be there, would you be teaching in an empty room? And kind of where your thoughts coming to this conclusion kind of went.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this is originally a Dave Burgess quote. This came right out of his book, Teach Like a Pirate. Now, I wrote a follow-up book to his book called Tech Like a Pirate, and it takes this same core idea about student engagement, asking questions like this one. If your students didn't have to be there, would you be teaching to an empty room? And then asking, can we do that with technology? So I can say as a reader, when I very first read this line in Dave Burgess's book, I finally felt like I found somebody who saw education the way that I did. I very much, the first, several years of teaching, while I was still trying to figure out who I was as a teacher and what my voice was as a teacher, what I wanted to be known for, what I wanted to do in my classroom, I wasn't finding it until I started finding folks like Dave Burgess who would say something like this. And then I started to espouse that as my own personal philosophy. Like, I want to be that teacher. I want to be the one where if I'm going to do something cool, people are going to show up if they have to come during lunch or if they have to come after school or something, like they would still show up. It's a really high bar to hold. And for teachers who feel overwhelmed and overburdened, and if they feel pressure and all of that stuff, like, I hope that you don't see this as yet another thing that you have to try to achieve. To me, it was just an inspiration. Like, if I set the bar here, I feel like I'm going to reach higher than I probably would otherwise. And so to me, it was just like, it was almost like an identity motto, like, this is what I view about teaching. And this is the direction that I want to move in, is to, like, really start creating some of those lessons that students are going to look forward to. Like, I give a little teaser before class is over. By the way, we're going to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow. And they're like, oh, I can't wait to do that. And I taught high school kids, so they didn't outwardly say that, but I could see like a little eye raise. That's their version of saying that. And that was the stuff that I thrived on.
Well, I think we set this huge bar for our children in our classrooms. Like, we want them to achieve so much each and every day. And by the end of this semester, I want them to be able to say they've done this. And so why aren't we doing that as educators for ourselves, saying, what, I really want to accomplish this. I want to bring in more technology rather than a textbook. I want to be able to bring in more STEM into my everyday classroom with the subjects I'm doing, and then setting that bar for ourselves and trying to figure out how to reach that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and
absolutely.
how fun to wake up for school and you feel like the student, you're so excited to get there. You can't wait to see what the day brings because you don't really know where it's going to lead or the questions they're going to ask or what other cool things you're going to have to find or who you're going to have to call. I mean, how exciting to really look forward to waking up and going to work every day. Like, we want our kids to feel that way. And if we're dreading it, we've got to run it through the filter. Like, if we're dreading doing this, how do we think the kids are going to perceive it? They can't get excited about it. And really, it is hard. But I ask myself a question: what's the purpose? And if I can't say what the purpose is behind what we're doing, we got to scrap it and do something else, because the kids will ask the same question, and they may not ask it out loud, but they're going to ask in their head, why are we doing this? What is the point?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Matt, I got high school kids like you. And so, as you know, it's a tough crowd to win, but I always feel like I have done a win when they go home and tell their parents what they did. Right. So I've had Karisa and Dayna's kids, and there's been times Dayna's texted me or Karisa's texted me, oh my gosh, they said you did this today. And I'm like, win. That they went home and spoke to their parents. And one of the things they said was, we did this today in class.
Well, and also, not only is that the activities that we try to help facilitate in our classroom, but it's also we have to connect with those kids like we've been talking about, because they want to come and be a part of that school family, because they feel like their family's at school and they have a connection there. And if they don't have that connection, then they don't want to be here. You know, so I think all of us preach to that as well, is that they have to feel like it's their room. It's not my room. It's not my classroom. It's their classroom. And this is the place that they get to discover. And they want to be a part of that because they're excited to find out what Mrs. K's wearing, or they're excited to find out what they get to do that day because they know it's this theme, or I know I might have a snippet, like you said. I know it's going to be something special, but I can't wait to get there to figure out how we're going to engage.
And you know that the person who is saying those words, that's right up above me, is telling the truth, because she's wearing 2 trash cans on top of her head as a costume. Like, you are not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk, Dayna.
Absolutely.
Listen, Matt, when I told her that we had you for this, she said, I am making a homemade headband for this one.
Yes.
For
it.
you.
I love it.
For you.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, can you kind of talk about the ditch model?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny. I kind of fell into this a little bit when I was writing my book, Ditch That Textbook, years ago. There's a lot of people who were making acronyms based on, you know, like whatever the name of your blog is or the name of your book is or whatever. And so I thought, well, I probably better make an acronym. And when I started putting it together, the thing that I came up with, I was like, wow, this actually really does match a lot about how I feel about education and, you know, what I'm passionate about and what I really would like to see in it. And so, yeah, real quickly, different is just like doing something that stands out from maybe what other students see, you know, what students see in different classrooms. For me, teaching high school, you know, I'm kind of like, you could look at it this way, that it's almost like your students are going to like 7 different stand-up comedy clubs. And like, you've got to go on after all these other acts. And so if it's like the same thing over and over and over again, eventually they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just saw that 3 times in a row. So I feel like you got to kind of differentiate yourself from that. Innovative to me, and see, different and innovative can kind of be seen similarly. To me, innovative, that goes back to Sir Ken Robinson's definition of having unique ideas. What was it? I can't remember, but it has something to do with unique ideas that have value. I think that's what it is. Unique ideas that have value. Yeah. And so for me, that's like trying new things that you haven't tried before and knowing that there's a chance that they might not work out, but that's how you unearth the gold. You know, that's how you get to the really good stuff, is you've got to try something that you haven't tried. And, you know, otherwise you'll never know if you stumble upon something that you absolutely love. Tech laden to me just speaks to the promise and the possibility that having a technology rich classroom brings. It's not to say that tech is going to solve all of our problems and that it's the solution to all of the things that we're trying to do, but it really does give us opportunities that we didn't have otherwise. It really does let us open up possibilities that we couldn't have. It really is the future of our students' work, at least for lots of them. And so I think we've got to embrace it. Mm-hmm. Creative, I'm just a huge proponent of creativity in our work, but also in our own personal lives. And so, I think the ability to express your own creativity, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about having fun with what we're doing. It's always good for students to feel seen and known. And having a little bit of themselves reflected in the work that they're doing. And of course, we can't do that without any creativity. And then, of course, hands-on, and that fits so nicely with YaySTEM, I feel like. That one's like right up your alley, that idea of, not just sitting and getting, but like, how can we make things interactive? There's loads of research about the power of, bringing some of that kinesthetic learning, that hands-on learning, interacting, engaging, and everything, instead of just passively getting. And so DITCH, that's kind of where that all came from.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first picture really speaks true to this, because Karisa did such a fun project just a week ago, and she's showing that picture right there, and it's something that she didn't know a lot about. Karisa, what was that again?
I just, you see all these things on social media, and I totally have to agree with Matt. I love Twitter for this reason, because I feel like it is such a network of educators. I feel like educators overpower Twitter, and you've got to take the good with the bad, but there's so much more good than I feel like there's bad. You find the right people. And something came across the screen with the Do Ink app and how you can do some app smashing. And I was like, perfect. We are jumping into books this year. The kids are loving it. Design a sweater that your favorite character would wear. And so we're talking about it, and I'm like, and you've got to wear the sweater. Like, you got to model it and show what it looked like. They're like, that's so silly. How are we going to wear this piece of paper? I'm like, did you know with technology, you can literally show yourself anywhere, wearing anything, holding anything. You could be at the Super Bowl, right? You could have been at the game last night, celebrating with the Chiefs afterwards. And so we brought in the green screens, but to watch these kids, here's how I feel. And you said this before, Matt, and I have to repeat it, that if we wait to figure out tech, we will fall so far behind. We just need to say, I don't know how to do all this yet, but I'm going to give the task to the kids. And I bet they're going to figure out how to use it instantly, because that's how they're wired, to figure these things out. And it may take me an hour to read up and try to figure out how something's supposed to work. Literally, I gave them some iPhones that we had and some iPads, and I said, here are the steps. You're going to learn about layering. And when you mess up, you're going to X out and bring the picture back in. They didn't ask me a single question. In fact, I asked to take one of the iPads because I wanted to. They're like, Mrs. Schwanenkamp, like they were worried I was going to like screw up what they were doing. So the point is, they're fourth graders, and they walked through this, and they used green screens, and they had to use different apps, and then they had to bring in pictures and upload a background. And I had never done it before. And I told them in the beginning, guys, I've never done this before, just so you know, like I don't have all the answers, but guess what? When we show the vulnerability, then they know it's okay to mess up, and they know, hey, my teacher, I used to always think teachers knew everything. And my teacher tells me all the time, she doesn't know it all. And it's okay that we learn together. So this was just such a fun learning experience together, because it's something none of us had ever done before. They completed the whole thing in like under an hour. They filmed a flip afterwards. We printed out the QR codes. They explained their inspiration. I mean, I don't know how many adults we could give this process to, and they would finish it in the time that the kids finished. Nice. So preparing them for these 21st century skills and in the real world, this is just where it's at. We cannot wait to figure out the technology. We will do everyone a disservice in our classroom.
And the project was about a book, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just pick your favorite character, and now get
Yeah.
in your character's head. Like, what do they love? What would they wear? So I did one too. I was dressed as Mary Poppins that day. And so I'm like, guys, I need to like draw and color more. This is super relaxing. And so we just did it together. It was awesome. But
And
how
they learn so
fun.
much.
Yeah, but how fun to create the content. Like, I would have never found that in a textbook. There's no textbook out there that could have ever led to that. And so that to me is the most fun when we get to, we're all teachers. That means we're all creative. And sometimes textbooks make us feel like that creativity piece is taken out. And so I say, the content, then you get to make up the rest. How fun. Hey, we're doing volcanoes. Instead of just reading about it from the book, we're going to go to Hawaii Volcano National Park, and we're going to do this STEM project. And I love your idea, Matt. When I read it, I was just planning what we were doing with volcanoes when you said a volcano playlist. I'm like, yes, I need to find all the songs that have something to do with volcanoes. Like, come on, that's gold.
Yes.
Well, I think also what you did was you took an idea that you would like to try sometime and you connected it with something you were already planning on doing in your classroom. And I think that is so great because like, hey, there's something I want to try, but how can I bring it in? And you just figured out a way to connect it. And that's kind of what I did in the middle one with my first graders. I was like, okay, there's this little Lightbright app I want to try with them. So how can I pull that in? I'm doing art this week and we're talking about different artists and we were talking about George Seurat and pointillism. And I was like, let's bring it into now. It's not just about using a piece of a brush, a piece of paper, and paint. So I showed them the Lightbright app, and then I just said, this is where it's at, guys. Go for it. And they were doing pointillism with a computer.
Yeah, and the one on the right, my big kids, we're at the culmination of a weeks long trying to figure out how an infectious disease spread through a hospital. And so trying to make everything as hands-on as possible. The young man here, he's doing a gram stain. And I know, you're not sciencey people, but this is a college level technique. They're able to follow the process. They're able to use the microscope at the end. And so there's certain tech that I am proficient in, but there's a lot. I'm like Karisa, I'm like, figure it out, and they bring me back better than I would have ever come up with on my own. And so I just love your acronym because I feel like you wrote what I strive to be on an everyday. I want them to say, I can't wait to go to PLTW because I don't know what Townsend will do today, but I know I won't be bored and I know it will be different. And so I feel like that, Matt, is what I strive to be, is to ditch every day.
Yep. Hey, I can feel it just hanging out with you three just for these last minutes. Like, I can tell this is like, it permeates out of your being. Like, it's who you are,
Mm-hmm.
You were so ahead of the times though, Matt. Like, when I'm looking back to your writing like 10 years ago, like, how did he know this? He's such a forward thinker.
Right.
Because at first I just thought you stole all my ideas. And then I realized, no, that was 10 years ago. I didn't even have those ideas 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like,
sorry,
how does
Chris.
he
I got the
read my
receipts on that
mind?
one. You can look at the copyright date on the book.
There you go. I will say, Matt, I have never liked textbooks. They've never done what I've wanted them to do. They always take up my closet space, but you were way ahead of. It took me a long time on this one to not be the gatekeeper. And I think, we've talked about this a lot, that we grew up in a time where the teacher was the center of the room. And so, what do? You model what you know. And even my best teachers growing up, they were the center of the room. And so for me, the biggest change in my 19 years of teaching was, the 10 years ago or so, I gave up being the gatekeeper and I became the guide. And now I can't go back. I won't even think to tell them the right answer anymore. I just look at them and go, I don't know, look it up, go ask somebody else, so anyway, so we want to address this one and where you came to on gatekeeper to guide.
Yeah. I kind of did the same thing. started out as, the keeper of the textbooks, the keeper of the worksheets, the keeper of all of those things. And, that's kind of a teacher-centered way of looking at it. I didn't have that vocabulary when I was going through this, but something just didn't seem right. It felt like learning was kind of something that was imposed on kids instead of something that they were actually participating in. It was way too top down. It was like, instead of them getting to make choices, instead of them taking control, instead of them, looking forward to it, it was like, well, what's he going to make us do today? And there's also a problem with, with relevance when you do that too. If they don't see the relevance in it, then you're not really being in that guide role, so to speak. And I also want to say too, that it wasn't like all of a sudden I was the quote unquote gatekeeper and then, boop, here I am, I'm a guide. Oh, I've made it. I've established myself as the guide. I am at the peak of the mountain, and I bet you all can probably speak to this too, that it is a messy, convoluted, up and down roller coaster ride of a journey where some days your students walk out of class and you're like, I'm pretty awesome. That was amazing. Like, they might as well start setting up interviews for Teacher of the Year. And then the next day you're like, I can't believe they pay me to do this. Like, they're going to figure me out here pretty soon. I'm not going to have a job anymore. And then the next day you're like, I can't believe they pay me to do this. This is so much fun. And the next day you're like, they're going to stop paying me. It's like back and forth. And so if anybody's watching this, it is totally natural. And you all can speak to this too. It is totally natural to feel like you are the amazing safari guide and everybody's looking out of like both sides of the Jeep going, wow, whoa, this is so cool. I want to get out and pet the zebras now. You can't just you can't just sit and get right. And then the next day you're like, you're just kind of like back to what you don't want to be. Yeah. I remember writing a blog post once that was titled "Becoming the Teacher That I Don't Want to Be." Like, the struggle is real, and we just kind of fluctuate back and forth. So I don't know if this is exactly the direction that you were hoping that I would go on this, but I just felt like that's such a real thing that we've got to talk about, that, you've never totally arrived, especially when you're working with human children on a regular basis. There is no like perfection. So anyway, that's kind of my take on this one.
You're right. It's not.
Sorry, Dayna, you go.
Okay, you're right. It's not a light switch. I mean, we all have been teaching for 20 years plus, almost 20 years plus, and it takes time to build that. And also, you have to think about, like we did on slide 1, where do we want to go? How do we want to teach, and what direction is that? And I really like how you said in your book that we're virtual learning guides, like helping them travel through all of these opportunities and helping guide them. I've always thought that I was like the coach on a team that's trying to figure out how to get to the playoffs, so it's like showing them, but they have to do the work and they have to figure it out.
Yeah. And, my class is set to be project based, to be, the student on an adventure, but there are days I have to be the gatekeeper. There are days, and I always apologize to the kids ahead of time. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but you have to understand this. And I have to go back and traditionally teach a little bit. And I think that's part of what we do, right? We have to go back, and Dayna's got to teach them their sounds, and it can't always be an adventure. Okay, I think I got one.
To speak to that, I think just real quick to speak to that, it may not feel like, and we may think that it doesn't feel like an adventure, but sometimes if they see the relevance in it, or if they see it as, a challenge that they're going to try to meet up to, sometimes the day-to-day stuff can feel a little bit like an adventure, right? It's like if they feel equipped and able, what do they call that? Student self-efficacy, having that, like, I think I can do this type of attitude. Then they can go into those kinds of things and say, this is a challenge. I'm going to see if I'm up to the task, So like sometimes I've fallen into that before too, where I think, oh man, this is going to be a grind. Oh, I don't know if they're going to, They're just going to like dread this. But in reality, it doesn't always end up that way because, learning is discovery. I mean, how many times do all of us in our adult lives want to go learn something and we'll go sit through a 20-minute discussion where it's a talking head on a YouTube video and we're like glued to the screen because it's something we want to get or because it fascinates us or it interests us or, whatever. So like, even the basic day-to-day stuff can be a journey too.
I agree. You get them with the experiences. So sometimes they don't even see the difference. I mean, sometimes it's just like they're bought in. The buy-in is there. You don't have to convince them to do anything. You could turn around and say, hey, it's NWEA day. Let's get fired up. You're going to prove what you know. And they're like, yes, I can't wait. And you're like, what did I just do here? Okay, that's great. I mean, the buy-in is there. When your day-to-day is mostly an adventure, it all feels like it. I totally agree.
Right.
And it's so great. I mean, I think all of us do this. We create an experience. I do it through, you can dress to learn to be a part of our room based on the theme of the day or what we're getting ready to discover. Just like when it was 100 days of school and I asked my kids to come dressed as construction workers because we've been constructing for 100 days. So, and then it's just creating those awesome experiences that they want to be a part of, just like we've been talking about.
Yeah. And I think that the three of us, one of the core things that we, run our rooms by is that they need to have a connection to real life. Right. And so like, even Karissa's picture on the left, it's real life outside cleaning up. It's real life when she takes them to the
food
pantry. Thanks, Dayna. It was gone in my brain. It's real life when we bring in someone with a career and just giving them that chance to experience something.
And take ownership and make that connection.
The learning becomes a piece of them. And I see that at the high school when we have a lot of big, hard curriculum, like the boys in the middle, that's a cow elbow. Their front leg, and they're learning how the joint works, and they'll never forget it their whole lives because it's massive and it locks into place. And they're just boys, just in there for the adventure that day. So
listen, it's about being good humans and kind people, and everything goes back to a purpose. Like, I always want to know, what's the purpose of this? So they're asking the same question. I mean, the picture on the left, I could have just melted. We learned about Martin Luther King Jr. We talked about why we have the school day off and how powerful it is to treat it as a day on and not a day off. I didn't require them to do anything. We just talked about how important it is. And I just had picture after picture of what these kids went and did on that day. I mean, these are girls cleaning up a field outside their house. I had pictures of kids making breakfast for their parents, just doing kind acts, and not because I mandated it, because they truly care about their learning and they see that they can make a difference, right? When I was in school, it was like, oh, I'll wait till I'm an adult and I can actually do something. And I think now it's so great. You can actually be a first grader. You can be a 9-year-old. You can be in high school. You can impact this world in a positive way, and you don't have to wait. And people listen to kids. So that's my favorite piece in all of this, where it's just real. It's authentic. You get to also explore your passions. Like, I'm passionate about taking care of the earth, and I'm passionate about those things. So I don't have to shelve everything important to me. I get to show them who I am as a person, and then they're developing who they are as people as well. To me, the best part of our profession, hands down, we get to be along, and maybe the kids have decided on their passions in the year that we have them.
It's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so our goal tonight, our viewers, was we were going to do it in 20 minutes.
I know. Sorry.
We're at almost 30, but we're so excited that Matt got to come with us today. Our next event is we're doing the Shift and Lift mini summit with Keep Indiana Learning. I think it's going to be a neat experience. You can see the link on the screen. You've got to register. It is free, but you have to register in order to get on the the platform. So this will be the 28th of February. And it's not just us. There's a lot of groups that are going to be on. And then our next live stream is Yay for Integration. It's like our favorite topic of all time. You can catch our old episodes at YaySTEM's YouTube channel. We can be found there, including this one, which we will treasure forever, that we got to have you on, Matt, and discuss something we're so excited about. We didn't say at the beginning, Matt, we put our topics together in August. And so it was funny that we were coming up on, dumping the books. And Karissa's always the one out of the three of us that's like, let's just reach out and ask. Let's just ask. If he says no, we'll just ask. And then when you said yes, all of us had just to come apart. So we actually, this is the one we prepped the earliest because we were so excited about it. So
love it. Well, I had the best time hanging out with you all. And hey, in the future, if you continue, needing guests, I mean, keep reaching out. I'd love to keep being a part of it. I love what you all are doing.
Well, we really appreciate it. And it's so good to talk with someone who has the same philosophy as we do. And really, we're able to connect with someone outside our corporation here in Indiana, someone who feels strongly in the same direction that we want to go with education. And it's just it's so great to be able to do that. And that's what teaching is all about, is connecting with people around you and bringing it in. So please give us some feedback. So when we do our next live stream on Yay for Integration, that maybe we have some ideas that you would want us to cover. And then if you give us feedback, we have some books that Matt has written that we would like to send out to people who have given us feedback. We've got 2 to hand out. So please give us that feedback. We would really appreciate it. And if you want to reach out to either one of us because you want to ask some more questions or make a connection of some sort, this is the way to do so, and how to get a hold of us on Instagram and Twitter. We thank you so much again, Matt Miller, and thanks for everyone who tuned in and are watching us on YouTube. YaySTEM!
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 Woo!